into his car to take him to the hospital, taking his children on the way to school, murdered before your eyes. The pilots of the helicopter begging for instructions to be able to shoot a wounded man.
Come on, let us shoot.
2 kids and 2 good Samaritans begging for instructions from their controller.
Shoot. Bongo truck picking up the bodies. Request permission to engage.
This is Bushmaster 7, roger, engage.
1-8, engage. Clear. Come on. Clear. Clear.
They don't want us to see that. However, we depend upon you journalists, publishers, publications, to bring to us the crimes that government commits.
Oh yeah, look at that, right through the windshield.
So that we are energized, so that we place our shoulders to preventing these murders.
Nice. Good shoot. Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Red Porcupine podcast, the HELIACAL Rising Star Series. My name is Rochelle Stain. Today we are looking at Capulus, the star nebula M34 in the constellation of Perseus. Every year on the 6th of June in the greater Gauteng and Mpumalanga, in fact everywhere, on the 26th parallel south, the star Capulus rises together with the sun at exactly the same place on the horizon. Capulus symbolizes a complex component of human nature and human reality. With this energy present in a star profile, it can represent both the wielding or the giving of this force, as well as being on the receiving end of this force.
There is now near universal recognition of the enormous implications that this case has for press freedom and the future of democracy. For most people, Julian is a symbol of staggering injustice, because he is in prison on trumped-up charges for exposing the crimes of others. A symbol because he faces a bewildering 175-year sentence for publishing the truth. A symbol of a sophisticated form of state violence dressed up in complexity and indirection that not even Franz Kafka could have imagined. For the press and the public, Julian's case is the most brutal attack on press freedom that the Western world has seen in the last 70 years.
Julian Assange has Capulus in his star profile, and his Capulus is in Paran, or in relationship to Saturn, to ruthlessly fulfill one's dreams, whether positively or negatively. This star, or rather nebula, is linked to male sexual energy, focused, direct, penetrating action, focused and passionate, and therefore at times brutal and violent. Its energy is clear, decisive, focused, and possibly even ruthless. And if it can be touched, weighed, or seen, then it has existence type of mentality. Perseus' sword is the male Kundalini energy, the partner to Algol. At times it can be ruthless and savage, but at other times it can show focused, clear action. With Capulus in Paran with Saturn, it can be a very difficult combination, as it takes the determination, headstrong ruthlessness, and risk-taking nature of Capulus and combines it with a desire to build a base, to build a body of work. In the worst case, this body of work can be a study in the macabre, or even be sadistic in nature, in that it brings hurt or harm to others. Thankfully, however, few people will fall into this dark place, and a more constructive use of the stellar combination is to be willing to tackle hard problems and pass those solutions on to others. You have the ability to undertake projects that daunt the more faint-hearted. It is important, nevertheless, to realize that a part of you can become ruthless in the pursuit of your goals, and therefore you need to always consider the impact of your work on the lives of others. Assange also has Capulus in relationship with Mercury in his prime to express oneself in a confronting manner. With Capulus in Parantial Mercury, it blends its harsh and aggressive energy with your interests, your communication skills, and even how you learn. Capulus is the sword of Perseus, and it represents the decisiveness and, at times, ruthlessness of direct action. Your words may be sharp and abrasive, or alternatively, you may feel that you are a victim of another's harsh words or policies. Mercury also rules business and contracts, so dealings in these matters must be treated with care. You may find yourself suffering at the hands of a bad contract, or perhaps you are the person who is too ruthless in business, pressing home your advantage to the detriment of others. Be clear, be concerned, and be focused, but remember that good business is where everyone benefits. I'm going to read a couple of sentences from this Guardian article written by John Norton, February 2015, about Aaron Swartz. Aaron Swartz stood up for freedom and fairness and was hounded to his death. The internet activist who paid the ultimate price for his combination of genius and conscience. To say Swartz was a prodigy is an understatement. He was far more than an immensely gifted programmer. As he grew, one could see him becoming more and more interested in politics, and this too was predictable, for nobody with that razor-sharp intelligence could look at neoliberal capitalism and not see the unfairness, hypocrisy, and inequality that lies beneath it. So he morphed into the most technologically gifted political activist in history. He looked for instances of manifest unfairness and developed software to remedy it. His first foray into this field involved downloading a trove of medical research papers and then data mining them to uncover hitherto undetected links between pharmaceutical firms and the authors of articles in prestigious journals. His downfall came when he turned his attention to JSTOR, a digital library of academic articles hidden behind a paywall. He devised a method of downloading large number of articles from JSTOR using a computer hidden in a closet at MIT. He was arrested in January 2011 and pursued by federal prosecutors with a vindictive zeal, eventually being indicted on a raft of charges which carried a potential jail sentence of 35 years. Ground down by this, he hanged himself on the 11th of January 2013. News of his death left countless people saddened and enraged. What had made the feds so vindictive? Sure, he had broken the law, but it wasn't as if he had hacked a bank. What came to mind was Alexander Pope's rhetorical question, "Who breaks a butterfly upon a wheel?" The act was harmless, wrote Tim Wu, a law professor at Columbia. There was no actual physical harm, nor actual economic harm. The leak was found and plugged. JSOR suffered no actual economic loss. It did not press charges. Like a pie in the face, Swartz's act was annoying to its victim, but of no lasting consequence. One explanation for the vindictive prosecution puts it down to a politically ambitious federal attorney anxious to make a name for himself. And this is a February 2013 article in Rolling Stone about Aaron Swartz, the brilliant life and tragic death of Aaron Swartz. He was a child prodigy, an internet pioneer, and an activist who refused to back down, even when the feds tried to break him. And this is by David Amsden. At 26 years old, Aaron Swartz had established himself as a singular force bridging the worlds of technology and activism, a young man driven by reckless curiosity and the belief that information was the most valuable of currencies, a form of wealth no one could be deprived of. As a teen programming prodigy, he had helped to develop RSS, the now ubiquitous tool allowing users to self-syndicate information online. And at 19, he was one of the builders of Reddit, the social news site that was purchased by Condé Nast, which turned Swartz into a millionaire before he could legally order a beer. Since then, he had become a tireless and innovative advocate for a number of causes related to politics and the power of unfettered connectivity. Aaron's death is not simply a personal tragedy, declared his family in a public statement. It is the product of a criminal justice system rife with intimidation and prosecutorial overreach. This became a sentiment widely echoed in the days and weeks following his suicide, the conviction that Swartz was a victim of a government that has, in recent years, stepped up its pursuit of cybercrimes in ways once reserved for terrorists, prosecuting even minor transgressions with increasingly harsh punishments. And here I'm reading from Starlight again. Aaron Swartz had Capulus in relationship with his moon. And this attribute of circumpolar means that the meaning is the volume and the dosage is turned up to be much more forceful or manifest in a black and white manner. With Capulus in Paran with the moon, it will add hostility and danger to the normally lunar-ruled matters of physical safety and security of environment. If Capulus was involved with your moon in your childhood, then all aspects of your nurturing and your mother figure will have been influenced by the aggression and reckless of the star. Your mother figure may have been a victim of such harshness or may have been herself a harsh person. In addition, your childhood safety or right to life itself may have been threatened. Swartz had this in his prime. If Capulus is active in your adult years, then its expression could be in your career, helping those who are victims, or in health, helping those in life-threatening situations, or possibly not reaching into your career, but subjecting you to turbulence and a feeling of a lack of safety in your environment. Paranoia, fear of aggression, or anxiety are all feelings that belong to Capulus in Paran with the moon. Hendrik Verwoerd, who is commonly regarded as the architect of apartheid, also has Capulus in relationship to, in Paran, to Mars in his star profile. Another interesting detail is that he was the Union of South Africa's last Prime Minister from 1958 to 1961. On May the 31st, South Africa was founded as a republic, remaining its prime minister until his assassination in 1966. Verwoerd heavily repressed opposition to apartheid during his premiership. He ordered the detention and imprisonment of tens of thousands of people and the exile of further thousands, while at the same time greatly empowering, modernizing, and enlarging the white apartheid state security forces. Verwoerd, South Africa had one of the highest prison populations in the world and saw a large number of execution and floggings. By the mid-1960s, Verwoerd's government, to a large degree, had put down internal civil resistance to apartheid by employing extraordinary legislative power, draconian laws, psychological intimidation, and the relentless efforts of the white state security apparatus. On the 6th of September 1966, Verwoerd was stabbed several times by parliamentary aide Sefendus. He died shortly after, and Sefendus was jailed until his death in 1999. So this is reading from Starlight, Hendrik Verwoerd's Capulus, the sword of the warrior with Mars in prime, willing to deal with the difficult or macabre. With Capulus in Paran to your Mars, your actions and motivation are fired by passion and at times recklessness. This is the sword of Perseus, the warrior and the hero, and its connection to Mars will propel you into battles. Aggressive, willing to confront, indeed loving a good fight, this stellar combination can make you the noble hero. Alternatively, it can make the criminal, the person who uses violence as the instrument of their own interest. Perseus carries a sharp sword, so make certain that you handle it carefully. It's fascinating for me that May the 31st was the old celebration of the founding of the Republic of South Africa in 1961. That was founded when Hendrik Verwoerd was the Prime Minister. And it's also very interesting that Friday the 26th, Algol, is the heliacal rising star, which means that Algol is the heliacal rising star for the 31st of May, for Republic Day. And here we can see in Durban, Capulus was the 16th of June. 16th of June is also a remembrance day for the Soweto riots, which took place on the 16th of June, 1976. None of the live players have Capulus as a heliacal rising star, setting star, and those live players with accurate birth times, none of them have Capulus on the angles. Only one live player, and that is Gary Kasparov, has Capulus, and Gary Kasparov has Capulus in Paran to his Mercury. With the dead players, none of them have Capulus as a heliacal rising setting or on the angles, but there are a couple of dead players. Bobby Fischer has Capulus Pluto Paran, King Charles has Capulus Mercury, Mark Zuckerberg also Capulus Pluto, Steve Wozniak Capulus Pluto, and then Julian Assange, who we just looked at, has two, Capulus in Paran to his Saturn and to his Mercury. Now here we are back in Starlight, and this horizon here is the horizon line of the 26th parallel. No videos because I'm in Cape Town. Let's just look here. Capulus, if we look where Capulus is, it's here. Here is Perseus, and remember we saw Algol in the constellation of Perseus, and here is Capulus. You can see there's Capulus. It looks like it's in the middle of nowhere, but that's just because it's not one of the brightest stars in the constellation of Perseus. But again, here we see the sun on the horizon, sunrise. Here we see our stick figure of the constellation of Taurus. And here's Perseus, same constellation as Algol. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If so, like, subscribe, and share. I'm looking forward to our next heliacal star rise, which is on the 19th of June, the star Al-Nut in the constellation of Taurus. Until then, keep your feet on the ground and your eyes on the stars.